and welcome back to Forza Top Gear Laps Rivals, the spin-off where we pit a couple of cars with common ground and close PIs against each other to see which one comes out on top. Today we take a look at two iconic legends of the British hypercar world from two very different eras. Firstly, the TVR Speed 12. This is a product that could only come out of the legendarily off-the-wall TVR. Originally conceived as a race car for the FIA GT1 class, it was presented to the public in 1996 at the Birmingham Motor Show and became an instant favourite. By 1998, however, the GT1 class had evolved into being dominated by purpose-built race cars like the R390 and CLK GTR. TVR, realising this car would not be competitive, shifted focus and instead decided to turn the Speed 12 into a road car. This would turn out to be fruitful, with many deposits being put down on what TVR was touting as the new world's fastest car, with a top speed eclipsing 240 miles per hour. The Speed 12 did this by using an old school philosophy, making it as light as possible while also being as powerful as possible. The Speed 12 name refers to the engine, the 7.7 litre 12-cylinder Speed 12 lump, made out of the mating of two TVR Speed 6 engines. The Speed 12 produced colossal power, so much that the 1000 horsepower dyno it was tested on broke its input shaft. Therefore, power figures at the Speed 12 are always estimates. Lightness was not an issue with its previous developments as a racer, with the final products being under a tonne in weight. Top this off with a price under £320,000 in today's money, and the Speed 12 was set to become the new hottest commodity in the sports car world. However, in 2000, Peter Wheeler, TVR owner and racer, drove the finished product home. Upon returning the next day, he cancelled the entire project outright, deeming the Speed 12 far too unsafe for the general public. The finished cars were used for spares for Speed 12s competing in British GT, and that was the end of that. With deposits being refunded and the remaining bodies destroyed, today just two examples of the Speed 12 exist, one in red and one in purple. These cars are two prototypes rebuilt for two lucky and brave TVR fanatics to experience the car too crazy for TVR. The version featured here isn't a real car, with the bodywork resembling the original 1998 prototype, which would have since had its bodywork destroyed. Next up, the McLaren Senna, a car named after the legendary Ayrton Senna. That name holds weight, so the resulting car had to be good. The Senna's goal is to dominate lap times. Based on McLaren's already very quick 720S supercar, the Senna is all about removing weight and increasing downforce. Function over form is a definite mission statement. The Senna looks striking. While it may not appeal to some, it's hard to deny the giant air intakes, roof scoop, massive rear wing which doubles as an air brake, and diffuser aren't on the car without reason. Other items include Brembo's carbon ceramic brakes using new compound which allows them to be smaller and thus saving some weight, along with super light centerlock wheels, and the next evolution of McLaren's carbon fibre monocoque. This allows the Senna to be very light, with a curb weight under 1300 kilos. To finish the product, McLaren has modified the M40TR 4-litre twin-turbo engine to produce that little extra power. Put this all together and the Senna is the ultimate in road legal track cars. When tested by the Grand Tour, the Senna dominated the Bolodrome, with a time 2.5 seconds quicker than the not road legal Aston Martin Vulcan. With its blistering performance, I'm sure Ayrton himself would approve. So there you go, two icons of the British hypercar world. So who's quicker, Rick Griffin or Hannibal Lecter? Onto the track then, and we begin with the 1998 TVR Speed 12, 800 horsepower, 649 foot-pound torque, 2,150 pounds of weight. This is on paper the quicker car. It's the most powerful car here today, it's the torquier car here today, and it is by far and away the lightest car here today. Of course, the balance in this is the Senna is a lot newer, it has all the aerodynamic stuff going on, newer brakes, newer tyres, so on and so forth, so it should balance these two cars out. In terms of the Speed 12, personally I love this thing, that's pretty obvious. I mean, it's a car too crazy for TVR to build, which I think is incredible considering how crazy they were. In terms of driving though, it's actually surprising. It is of course mental, you can see it as it goes around the track here, it's ridiculously fast, it sort of looks like it's weaving all over the place, but actually it's not that bad to drive, it's actually relatively easy. It has a lot more rear end grip than you'd think, so you can get the power down. and it has a decent amount of front end grip as well. I'm not quite sure. I think there's something more wrong with the game in terms of this car, but yeah, it drives really quite nicely. Again, it is crazy. You really have to keep your eye out on this car, but it is surprisingly easy considering how you'd expect it to be. Next up, 2018 McLaren Center, 789 horsepower, 590 foot-pound torque, 2,800 pounds of weight. Again, this car is slower on paper than the Speed 12, but it has the downforce. You can see the wing moving around. It has newer brakes, newer tyres, so on and so forth, so that should help balance it out. I do like the McLaren Senna. I know it's a controversial looking car, but I actually think it looks pretty darn cool. A lot of this car just depends on paint, and I mean, it's objectively it's not pretty, but I think it looks cool. It's kind of like the Lamborghini Veneno in that aspect. In terms of the way this drives, this was surprising. It's actually trickier to drive this than the Speed 12 I found, because you can never quite be sure what the Senna's going to do. Sometimes it does exactly what you want it to do, other times it doesn't. Part of this is because it is very dependent on the downforce. At lower speed corners, the Speed 12 will wipe the floor with this thing. Once we get up to higher speed stuff, sort of the latter part of this lap, the Senna is much quicker. Going through the follow-through, it's one of the quickest cars we've had. It is definitely a mental car to drive. I would maybe say that I actually prefer driving the Speed 12 over the Senna, which is hard to say. Onto the leaderboard, however, and it's very interesting. The McLaren Center is the quickest car, although really not by much. It goes into third place with 107.737. The TVR Speed 12 just behind it in fourth place with 107.771. The Speed 12 was actually leading, but the Senna just managed to get in on that final lap, just a super quick lap. Both of those cars are ridiculously quick though. They're not too far off the Radical RXC Turbo, which owned our leaderboard for about a year. They're both quicker than the Ultimate 1020, which is a phenomenally quick car. The Speed 12 especially is very, very impressive. That car is from 1998, and to find another car built in the 90s, you have to go all the way down to 27th place, where ironically you find another McLaren, the F1 GT. Yeah, the Speed 12 and the Senna are both ridiculously quick cars, and they've really shaken up the top of our leaderboard, which is good because I like both of those cars. However, if we had to come to a conclusion here today, which is my favourite of the two, I guess from what I've been saying, it should be pretty obvious. The Speed 12. I love the Speed 12. Again, it's a car too crazy for TVR to build. That is just insane. But it's actually the better driving of the two cars. I found it to be more consistent. It's easier to drive. Sure, it's utterly mental, and I love that about it, and you really do have to keep your wits about you. I don't want you to go into this thinking it's going to be an easy car to drive. It's still tricky, but it's nowhere near as tricky as you'd think it'd be, and it's certainly not as tricky as the Senna or even half the modern hypercars that we've had around. This is actually better driving than those, I'd say. Yeah, the Speed 12, man, it's just such a good car. I can't recommend it enough. The Senna's great too. I like the Senna. It does its job. I think that car is more at home on higher speed circuits than it is on the lower speed circuits. I'd avoid it for those. I'd probably go with something like a 918 Spider or something. But the Senna's still great, but the Speed 12 for me is the champion of this one easily. I love this car a lot. Anyways, thank you all very much for watching this edition of Forza Top Gear Laps. Do join us next time for the main full episode, which is going to feature modern SUVs, which I'm sure will pique the interest of all of you, and then join us back next week after that for Rivals, where we're going to be taking a look at two cars that couldn't be more different from each other, but yet in the world of Forza actually make for slightly compelling rivals. So join us for that. Thank you all very much for watching, and until then, farewell.